So for the last couple of years, I've read a lot of different self-improvement books, ranging from money books to communication books to productivity and habits and even spiritual ones. And after a while of reading this genre, right, this self-improvement genre, I realized that, as I'm sure that most of you have also noticed, that these self-help books all try to preach the same thing, don't they? It all basically boils down to you resisting the short-term impulses in the hopes of obtaining a more valued reward in the future. In finance, it's not succumbing to going shopping and spending all your money and just investing it so that you can not buy a piece of clothing now, but so you can buy 10 later. In fitness, it's the ability to resist that cookie so you can have that body that you've always wanted. Productivity, resist the Netflix and the Instagram and work. So we get the gist of it, right? All self-help is trying to do is to teach you how to delay gratification. And so after many years of consuming this type of content, I started to develop a chip on my shoulder. I started becoming entitled. After a while, I started to think that I was just too good for these books, that I'd already learned everything that I had to learn from these books. And so I started to think that my life would be better if I just cut them off completely and just focus on actually putting them into practice. And so I did this for a while. I started to simply focus on putting into practice what for years I spent reading on and learning about. But something was missing. It just wasn't the same. I wouldn't say that I lost my edge, because it's not that I deviated fully from my habits and my productivity. You know, everything was in order, but I wasn't completely locked in. It just isn't the same as when you have atomic habits in your nightstand. You forget about it. You're not as intentional. And so here's where I realized that the biggest value that these self-improvements had on me was not necessarily what they were trying to teach me, the principles that they were trying to convey, but rather them serving as a constant reminder of the concepts themselves. The fact that this book is making me think of the subject is way more valuable than whatever it is that it's trying to teach me. For example, the biggest effect that a money book has on me is not necessarily that it teaches me how to become rich through these strategies and principles. The biggest and most positive effect that it has on me is that it gets me thinking about money. When I'm reading money books, I'm conditioned to interpret everything in my reality as money. I suddenly put my money lens on and I see the world through how can I make money, opportunity. When I'm reading money books, I'm more unconsciously aware of where I spend. I'm more inclined to invest and make more sound financial decisions. And when I come to think of it, it's not necessarily because of the money book. The money book is not telling me specifically to save and invest, but the fact that I'm thinking so much about money is a value that before I just couldn't understand. For those of you who have read How to Win Friends and Influence People, be honest, what was it that you got most out of this book? Did you learn some new strategy, some new concept that you didn't know about? Because for me, all these things I kind of already knew, but just the fact that I was reading on how to be more social, that made me be more social. And I don't know, honestly, I'm just talking from personal experience. Maybe it's just me that rapidly changes his behavior and according to what his current conditioning is. But because I know that this is true for me, because I've understood that I'm always changing my reality to whatever it is that I'm most recently consuming content on, then I can leverage that to get the most out of life. For example, I have a marathon that I'm running tomorrow. Guess what's on my nightstand? David fucking Goggins. Or do you honestly think that I would perform the same if I were reading some communication book on how to make others feel good while I'm running? At the same time, I realized that I'll have a way better night out when I read 3 to 4 pages of How to Win Friends rather than being exposed to raw how to be disciplined and shit. I honestly know that this just isn't me. I actually looked it up and it's called recency bias. Factually, we are more inclined to perceive the world through the lens of what we were most recently exposed. My personality changes too depending on whatever type of book I'm reading. So if I'm reading The Millionaire Fast Lane, which I read 3 months ago, and you met me during that arc, during that period in my time, during those 4 weeks, I would only be talking about how do we make money, how do we grow a business out of this. Versus if I were reading again How to Win Friends, you would have loved me in that period, because I would only be listening to you. I would be so engaged and looking into your eyes and practicing my attentive listening. A different person completely. And now I'm reading The Alchemist, so I'm all philosophical and shit, trying to find my purpose, and so you might think I'm straight as hell. And so how I get the most out of self-improvement books is I try to identify what type of person do I want to be right now. And this can be short-term or long-term. It can be short-term, as short as I'm going to a party in a couple hours, so let me read something that'll help me there. Or long-term, because I really need to get my shit straight with my money. Whereas before, I would just read one book at a time, as this is the normal approach, this is the practical way to do it. Now I read multiple books at once, and I use it according to the context that makes sense. I honestly hope that this video made sense. Because before, I couldn't see that there was utility in reading a book for its conditioning effects. And I would argue that that conditioning effect is even more powerful than whatever it is it's trying to teach you. But again, this is just my personal experience. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this video. Please share it with a friend if you did so. And that being said, I love you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!